Welcome to Sema4.ai Studio, where you build and test enterprise-grade AI agents with ease. Today, we'll show you how to connect your agents to MCP servers. You'll learn to use secure containerized tools running in Docker, as well as remote servers hosted externally. This gives you the control and flexibility needed for any enterprise. We'll walk through a complete example, creating an agent that helps developers with AWS issues. First, we'll connect it to documentation tools through the Docker MCP Gateway. Then, we'll add a remote server that classifies the severity of issues. Finally, we'll show you how to expose that agent as its own server, so it can be used as a building block for other applications like Claude or Cursor. To begin, open Studio and head to the Actions tab. Then select the MCP Servers panel at the top. You'll see the Docker MCP Toolkit. Click the link icon to connect. Once connected, Studio will automatically detect any MCP servers running in Docker and populate the available tools in real time. Let's switch to Docker Desktop. You can click the Open Docker Desktop icon, which will take you to the catalog of MCP servers. Here you can find hundreds of curated, secure MCPs that you can choose from. For this example, let's select the AWS documentation. This MCP server has tools that search AWS documentation, get content recommendations, and convert the doc page into Markdown. To connect this server, simply click Add MCP Server. This particular server doesn't require an API key. However, others may need secrets and additional configurations. Docker handles all of this securely, so you won't need to duplicate these settings in Studio. Let's return to the Studio and refresh MCP tool. When you click View All, you'll see the tools from the server you just installed in Docker. Your MCP tool is now ready to be added to any agent, just like adding any other action. Go to the Agents tab to create a new agent. Let's give it a name and description. We will call it AWS Catalyst Agent. Next, open the runbook. This is where you define what your agent does, how it behaves, and which tools it uses. Runbooks are written in plain English. They don't require code, flowcharts, or scripting, just clear, structured logic that your agent can follow. In this example, the runbook instructs the agent to ask for an issue description, search AWS documentation using the MCP tools, and return the most relevant results. All defined in plain English. Once you are done with the runbook, save and close. Select the large language model of your choice to power your agent. Now click Add Actions and choose the Docker MCP Toolkit. At this point, your agent is fully configured, logic defined, tool connected, and ready to go. Click the Create button, and we should be able to interact with the agent in a few seconds. Now that our agent is created, let's start a conversation and see it in action. You might start by describing a common issue like a throttling exception from DynamoDB. Watch as the agent follows the instructions we defined in the runbook. It will assess the situation, and if it needs more information, it will ask for it. You can see the agent's internal process in real time, including how it's deciding which tools to call and why. The agent is now calling the search documentation tool to find most relevant pages. Based on its search, the agent returns helpful matches from the official documentation, providing a clear path to troubleshooting your issue. So far, we've built a robust agent using Docker MCP. Now, let's take a step further and add a remote server to expand our agent's capabilities. We'll connect to an MCP server that classifies the severity of issues. Go back to the MCP Servers panel in the Studio Action tab and click Add MCP Server. Let's give it a name. We'll call it Issue Severity Classifier. Next, leave the transport set to Auto to let Sema4 Studio choose the best connection method. Now, in the URL field, paste your remote MCP endpoint. Finally, let's handle authorization. If your MCP requires a secret like an API key, you can add it here. Click Add Header, then input X API key, and select Secret from the dropdown. This ensures your key is stored securely. You can also add other headers your remote MCP might need, such as content type or custom authentication headers. Once you've added everything, click Add to save the server. Studio will verify the connection and show you the available tools. In this case, you should see Classify Severity tool. Now that we've added our remote server, let's update our agent to use it. Open the runbook and add a new instruction to the agent. Once you've added the new instruction, save and close the runbook. Now click Edit Agent and then Add Actions. You'll see the Issue Severity Classifier tool we just added. Select it and click Apply Changes. Your agent is now connected to multiple MCPs, one through Docker, one remote, and is ready to test. Start a new conversation thread and enter a new issue. Watch as our agent goes through its new workflow. First, it calls the remote server tool to classify the issue's severity. Then, it uses the documentation tool to find relevant troubleshooting steps. Now that your agent is tested and ready, you can expose it as its own MCP server. This feature allows other agents or external tools to call your agent, just like any other MCP endpoint. On the right-hand sidebar, you'll see an Agent MCP Server endpoint. This appears once experimental features are enabled in Studio settings. The endpoint is unique to your agent and follows the standard protocol. You can now copy this endpoint and use it in external apps. For example, if you're working in Cursor, you can add this to your mcp.json file. In just a few steps, you've built a powerful agent. You connected Studio to Docker, added a server with documentation tools. You then integrated a remote MCP, and finally, you exposed that agent as a new server, ready to be reused across other agents, tools, and teams. Sema4 Studio makes it easy to build secure, intelligent agents, giving you full control over how they reason, act, and scale. And with the Docker MCP catalog at your fingertips, you can explore hundreds of ready-to-run tools, from open-source utilities to enterprise-grade integrations. What will you build next with Sema4 Studio? Tell us what you're working on and what you'd like to learn next.